Hi, I'm Dr. Amy Robbins, and welcome to Life, Death, and the Space Between. I am as fascinated by what happens after we die as I am by what are those odd, strange experiences that we have while we're living. Do people actually see UFOs that are now apparently called UAPs? Is Bigfoot real? Do people actually see ghosts? Well, that's what Jacob Glazier is here to talk about with us today. He is a paranormal psychologist. Yes, that is a thing. And the way this episode started was just not to be believed. We kind of start cracking up. You'll hear why. You'll listen to this story because it was just frankly paranormal. The whole interview had this element of what is happening to it. We laughed a lot, not that there is not real seriousness in everything he talked about, but when you start to talk about the notion of Bigfoot and other cryptids that people report seeing and fairies and whether or not they're real and how we think about certain things that we say are real, but how do we know they are real? It really kind of messes with your head and gets you thinking about what is the nature of reality and how we define that reality. So I think you're all going to enjoy this conversation. It was a lot of fun. I was a little bit slap happy when I recorded it because it's been a long day for me, but I really think you're going to have fun with this conversation that Jake and I had. So with that, here is my conversation with Jacob Glazier. Are you looking for stories of hope and positivity? If you are, then you need to check out Inside Wink. It's a new podcast that I recently was turned on to, and I think you are going to love it too. It's hosted by Jean Trebek and Allison Martin, and Inside Wink delves into the lives of inspiring guests who are making a difference. They encourage kinder living, reveal silver linings, and see the world's perpetual generosity and explore new and unconventional ideas to make the world a better place. It's a podcast that truly does feel like this little ray of sunshine and a warm hug. And you will love listening to the guests in their conversations with Allison and Jean. From activist to artist, every episode brings you closer to the heart of meaningful change. So tune in to Inside Wink for stories that uplift and inspire, because every good deed starts with a story. Welcome, Jake, to Life, Death, and the Space Between.
Hi, Amy. I'm very happy to be here.
So you are a paranormal psychologist. You're going to explain what that means. But before you explain that, let's just share with the audience what kind of crazy paranormal thing just happened, because neither of us understand it. We're waiting for it to happen again. Mm-hmm. Describe what you saw.
Yeah. So my interpretation was, I thought it was like this sort of AI computer thing that happens, if you use Zoom, for example, these emojis will pop up every now and then or whatever. But it wasn't like that. It was sort of like almost like a snake that streaked across. I just saw it on your screen, Amy, and it kind of went across and then went back, and now it's gone.
So you're my third podcast recording today. My first recording today was all about electronic voice phenomenon. So, kind of deep into like spirit communication. And I was like, oh, maybe I'll try this. And then my second one was about grief. And now I'm talking to you about paranormal experiences and ruptures. And it seems that was unexplainable. I don't know what it was. It looked like you said, like almost like shooting stars kind of over my head. I wish I would have been recording when it happened so people could have seen it, or maybe it's just fuzz across my camera. I don't know, but it just was very weird. We're both like looking with bated breath, like, is it going to happen again?
Right. Very, very strange. Yeah, I don't know. Definitely anomalous, but that doesn't mean paranormal. So we're
Okay.
sort of in the, in the gray territory, the unknown.
So let's talk about, okay, you're a paranormal psychologist. What does that mean? And then help us, like you just said, the paranormal versus the anomalous, like talk about that. I feel like we just got teed up perfectly for this interview.
Perfect.
Thank you,
Yeah,
universe
yeah,
of paranormal experience.
yeah. I know. It's set the stage well. Uh, yeah, so I'm a psychologist by training, and I do my research or my scholarship is generally in uh, parapsychology, which is the branch of psychology that studies exceptional experiences or paranormal experiences. And so I do research in that field in relation to what's called critical psychology. So I kind of bring the two together and try and understand what do these. Okay, so my starting point, right? My premise is that people have strange paranormal experiences. For me, that seems to that is true, right? That's the
Mm-hmm.
case, right? People report these things,
What
right?
defines a paranormal experience? The snake just going across my head on top of the screen? No?
Yeah. Um, yeah, that's a really, really good question. And depending on the researcher, you're going to get sort of different answers. I would define a paranormal experience as something that uh, doesn't fit into our normal models and molds of reality. Okay, so or rather, maybe that would be better defined as an anomalous experience, just like the snake thing that we just saw. We're not sure, we don't know.
Mm-hmm.
Paranormal, I think there's some consistency, right, that people report over and over and over again. So, I'm just, sort of pulling out of the sky here, but let's take apparitional experiences.
Mm-hmm.
So seeing, a ghost or a figure or something that is immaterial that's not there. Right, that's not like what we just saw, a snake just floating across the sky. Right, this is something that that's it's in culture, it's in folklore, it's in stories, it spans history, right? So there's another way to say this is there's some consistency to sort of these paranormal experiences.
Okay. So, snake going across my screen, not necessarily because it doesn't fall in the many people have had this experience and talk about it. But like UFO, paranormal?
Yes, I would. From that definition I just gave, I would say that yeah, the UFOs or UAPs is kind of the new term, unidentified aerial phenomenon. That there is a paranormal element to these things because just like Amy, you were saying that people around the world report these stories, experiences, and they exist in history as well. So there is, I think a paranormal element there.
So, when you're researching this, what are you looking for? Are you looking for truth in like the truth that I don't even know that yes, UAEs, unidentified UAPs,
UAPs, yeah.
UAPs are actually real or that our minds create that or what? What's the research about specifically?
Really, really good question. So I think the more traditional parapsychologists would be interested in that truth claim. Is it real or is it not real?
Mm-hmm.
Right? So that there's researchers out there that try and understand that in that sense. Myself, going back to critical psychology and parapsychology, trying to bring the two together, I'm not so interested in the truth claim. Is it real? Is it not real? What I am interested in is what do these experiences, how do these experiences challenge our normal understanding of reality? Right? So they, in various different ways, right? They sort of shake us out of, our being complacent with the way we understand the world. And so I'm interested in that effect. What effect does it have?
Got it. So you're researching to see, this is the part I love, right? Because I'm so curious. I think when you have these, I mean, I've referred to them as STEs, spiritually transformative experiences, I think probably fall under the umbrella of like a paranormal experience, right?
Mm-hmm.
Um, what do you do with that? You had the experience. I always say, so now what? And I guess you're looking at the so now what? So tell us what you've found in the so now what area of the experience.
Yeah, I think one of the takeaways is that reality based on, let's say, normal models from science or physics or the way we understand reality normatively, the sort of common sense, but also scientific conception. So reality is much weirder and stranger than we're willing to admit. So that's
Dun,
one of the
dun.
key takeaways for me.
Okay. Meaning what? Like, how do you determine what is considered strange? Like, why is a UFO or why is a communication with a loved one who has passed considered strange when I don't know what the numbers are, but like over 70%, I think, of people have said they have had an experience that makes them feel like they have communicated with a dead loved one, for example. So why does that still constitute a paranormal experience and not a normal experience? Because there's a lot of people who've had other experiences that are considered normal that I haven't had.
Right. It's a good point. And so I'm right with you, is that I believe the data out there that says that many people have these experiences. And so I'm interested in pushing back against that notion of them being strange. Right? So to ask it as a question, what is it about our society, our way of understanding human spirituality that makes these things strange or taboo to talk about? Right? There's something interesting going on there. So yeah, part of my work wants to understand what's going on with making these kind of stigmatizing these experiences. And in addition, I want to ask why. Why does our society stigmatize these things?
And have you gotten any answers to those questions yet?
Yeah, it's complex. I think, to go back to what I was kind of alluding to earlier, I think there's a lot of money in science and a specific kind of science. And so I see there's economic factors involved in trying to set up the world, the picture of the world in a specific way. In addition, we could talk about sort of the way that technology structures the way we see the world. And, if we want to speak, from a cultural or anthropological perspective, we can understand there's different ways of understanding the world. One of my favorite versions of reality, or the philosophical term, is called cosmology. It's called animism, or sometimes panpsychism. And so that's a model of reality. It's not in our normal science, but it's found in a lot of indigenous cultures, sort of First Nation peoples, and so on and so forth. So seeing the world in some sense, right, as imbued with spirits or consciousness, or it's a much more kind of spiritual and holistic version of reality, versus what we get from science, right, which is sort of this reductive version.
Mm-hmm. And what do you think it is about that other version that, we do hear about in indigenous cultures? And I mean, even yesterday at this Mental Health America conference, a woman of indigenous heritage was speaking about the spirit names that from her culture, from her tribe, people are given, and how that's, a big part of their culture, and has to do with, I guess, their connection to kind of the bigger spirit of the earth and everything. Why do you think we have so moved away from that? And what kind of damage do you think that has done as we have denied people of these? We've really in some way pathologized these paranormal experiences as there's something potentially wrong with you I was afraid to share my story on my to start this podcast, because what would people think of my experiences, these paranormal experiences that brought me into this space and frankly were extremely helpful in my healing process.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think it does a lot of damage and a lot of violence to, people's mental health, and maybe even more importantly to our sense of spirituality, right? Feeling interconnected with nature or the world, with each other. There's something, to go back to what I said earlier, just about how, for me, these paranormal or exceptional experiences speak to the fact that reality is much weirder and much stranger than typical science would say it is, right? So I sort of believe that, and I think that, denying these experiences, and you know uh, sort of saying that one version of science is the right version. For me, that's really, really problematic. It's hurtful, it's damaging, and it doesn't honor traditions and histories and even folkloric stories that we hear about. That people have had these experiences for recorded history, perhaps.
So in your research, I think we got like a little bit derailed here. I want to go back to my question about what do you find in terms of the now what from people when they've had these experiences? Or is that something specifically that you're researching? Okay. So you saw UFO
Mm-hmm.
or UAP.
Mm-hmm.
UAP. Wait, what is it? Unidentified aerial
Phenomena.
Okay.
Yeah.
What do you do with that? How does that change your life, or does it not? Do you just go back to normal from paranormal?
Right. Yeah, I mean, I don't research that specifically, but I do think that, it depends on someone's personality. It depends on how safe their community is. It depends on how much they feel like they can open up, talk about it, or, given the United States and sort of our fast-paced lives, we live under capitalism as our economic system. People are so go 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 go, that there might be something strange in the sky, but you notice it, and then you just move past it.
Or you fit it
So
into your current schema of thinking. You don't see it as something different.
exactly. Exactly. And so that's I my intuition is saying that, a lot of these so-called paranormal experiences happen more frequently than they're reported. Just because, Amy, just like you're saying, it's like, cognitive dissonance. We just can't make sense out of it, so we just move on.
Right. So like the snake that started this today, you'd just be like, oh, like if I just had that experience on my own and you weren't seeing it too, I would have probably said, oh, that might have been a piece of dust that came across the screen. But then when it came back the second time and we both witnessed it, there was, I mean, maybe you didn't feel this way, but I certainly felt like there was something about us witnessing it together that made it seem more real and less, and I would be less likely to write it off as something as dust.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Definitely. It's funny. You're echoing some research and findings that I'm presenting at a conference actually next week.
You could talk about this experience. You could use this.
Yeah. But yeah, you're right. So let me just,
yeah, go. Sorry.
No, that's okay. There's when we can sort of, with others, right? When there's kind of a group validation of the experience, right? That makes it more real, right? And so that was the finding in our study, is that when people experience things maybe in pairs or a small group, that provides, it becomes more real, it becomes more of a phenomenon. So I think that there's a lot of truth to that.
What else? What is this conference you're going to be at?
Yeah, so it's for the Society for Scientific Exploration.
Mm-hmm.
And
wait, is that the one in Chicago?
This one, this year is actually virtual.
Okay.
So it'll be on AirMeet. It's the SSE conference. But yeah, people can Google it, check it out. It's a great group of scientists that are what we call in the field maverick scientists. So they're sort of on the front, the pioneer or the frontier, right? They're frontier scientists. They're on the leading edge, trying to understand, what's going on with these strange experiences.
Mm-hmm. So what are some of the other paranormal experiences that you have come across? I mean, are we talking Bigfoot? Is Bigfoot a paranormal experience?
It is. I think a lot of paranormal researchers would classify Bigfoot under what are called cryptids. So cryptids are, we're not sure, okay, but they're usually
there's snakes flying above my head.
Yeah.
This is like perfect. I am milking this the whole interview today. Okay, everything. The snakes were every type of paranormal experience we could have had. Okay, so I keep interrupting. I'm sorry. It just the whole setup of this interview today was like so perfectly done. Okay, so cryptid is
So maybe we were witness to like a new category of cryptids, a virtual or digital cryptid. I'm not sure.
Oh my God, we're at the cutting edge. You heard it here first, people. The cutting edge of technological Bigfoots. Bigfoots. Okay, so we've got Bigfoot.
Okay, yep. So Bigfoot. So these, so cryptids kind of comes out of a field called cryptozoology. So animals, sort of animal type things that zoology or normal mainstream scientists haven't agreed are real. Okay, so Bigfoot would be one. Even like fairies, gnomes, elves, like what is it, the chupacabra, the list goes, mermaids maybe, right?
Mm.
Those would all be classified as sort of cryptids.
So there's actually people researching whether or not fairies are real.
Yeah, yeah, yes, yeah, in a sense. So I don't know about, so the real part of the
Mm.
question is sort of debatable in the sense that people report having experiences of fairies, right? In their fairy circles in nature. I have a colleague, Jack Hunter, who does work in the United Kingdom, and he has some research on fairies and related creatures. And so, not trying to understand if they're real or not, but sort of what's going on. What's
Mm.
creating this experience. And just briefly, Jack has some really great work on psychedelics and how psychedelics can kind of facilitate these sort of entity encounters.
Mm. Okay. So we've got cryptoids,
Cryptids.
cryptids, kryptonite. Okay. Cryptids. So it's been a long day. You're my third interview. I feel like I'm giddy at this point. Okay. Cryptids. What else?
Cryptids, UAPs, which we talked about.
And the difference between UFOs and UAPs. Why this shift in the name?
Yeah, so there really is no difference. So just recently, I think it was maybe it was maybe 2 summers ago, the US government came out and said that these things are now called UAPs. And so, researchers have kind of shifted their terminology to be more in line with what the officials say. So there's really no difference.
Okay. Why do you think there was that shift?
Yeah, another really good question. UAPs is a much more nebulous and broad name. So think of it, unidentified aerial phenomena. I mean that could be anything. It's not. It could be it's not an object. It could be
a bird.
Yeah,
that looks funky. A one-winged bird.
Who knows?
A snake going by my head.
Yeah. So,
oh my god. Okay. We're getting
so right. Yeah. I mean, I don't know the real reasons why they made the change, but it broadens the category. It's not just like a strange plane or object you see in the sky. It's it could be really anything. So yeah, so it's just a broader category. And then let's see. So cryptids, right? UAPs. And then what I kind of mentioned earlier, apparitions.
Mm.
So apparitions, include what we think about as ghosts or, shadow figures, these sort of, things that kind of come, we can see out of the corner of our eye, but when we look over that direction, they kind of vanish or they go away.
Mm. So are you looking at for those situations, do you look at potentially like what in the brain creates that? Or you're looking at, I don't know, are there ever experiences like that where multiple people see something and then that tends to be a different type of way of researching or looking at things? I mean, if since you and I saw the snake, I feel like that's different than something catching my eye and then being gone.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. But yeah, so some scientists, some parapsychologists take that approach of kind of looking at the brain or taking more of a neuropsychological approach. So I'm thinking of there's something called the Persinger God helmet that will induce. You put this sort of helmet on your head, and it through electrical stimulation, or it'll produce this sense of a presence. And so it doesn't produce an hallucination, right? It doesn't produce, that we see something, but it does give the sense of sort of a presence. Okay. So there are, absolutely, there are parapsychologists out there that take that more, neuropsychological approach. I'm more interested, again, in sort of the social, discourse or narratives around apparitions, around ghosts. So how do people talk about ghosts? When do they talk about ghosts? What's permitted? What's not permitted? For example, I would never get in front of one of my psychology classes I teach, usually, right, for the most part, and say, hey, I had to tell you guys about this. I just saw this ghost last night. It freaked me out, because of the professional setting. It's not, a lot of people think that these things are maybe real or not real or silly. So I'm interested in more of the social aspects of these paranormal phenomena.
How did you get interested? I probably should have started here, but I was so excited. How did you get interested in paranormal psychology? I mean, you talk about in the preface to your book, like from a very young age, you knew that this is the work you wanted to do. Did you have experiences of paranormal experiences when you were young?
Yeah, I mean, I've definitely had, what I would call exceptional or paranormal experiences. Absolutely. I mean, I'm just, it just comes to my mind right now. I'm thinking, when I was growing up, I remember, there was no reason I did this, but I remember, checking out books from the library and buying books on UFOs. Like that was, I had tons and tons of books on UFOs. There's no experience that goes with that, but that was just sort of what I was interested in. And then kind of, fast forwarding a little bit, I went to school at the University of West Georgia, and by chance, by happenstance, I didn't know this when I was interviewing for the program. They employed and currently still employ a full-time professor of psychology who specializes in paranormal experiences. And so that was interesting for me. And again, sort of by happenstance, I got accepted into the program, and then I was assigned to be, her name's Dr. Christine Simmons-Moore, and she still, does excellent research and scholarship. She still teaches at the University of West Georgia. But I got by happenstance, I was assigned to be Dr. Simmons-Moore's graduate assistant. So I worked under her. And she was at the time, I think she was researching synesthesia in relation to exceptional experiences. And so,
can you describe for people what I know what synesthesia is? It's that you see, right? You see, you hear, like your senses get crossed, right? So you like hear colors and.
Exactly. Right? Yeah. I like that analogy of your senses get crossed, right? So yeah. So, like seeing colors, tasting sounds. There's a lot of different.
We're not hearing colors, right? Hearing color, because we see colors.
Oh yeah, that's what I meant. Hearing colors. That's right. Yeah.
I might have said seeing too. So where is your research now? What exactly are you researching at this time?
Yeah. So I'm sort of building on the work that is in Paranormal Ruptures. So Paranormal Ruptures is a book that came out last year. It's a collection of chapters that bring together critical psychology and exceptional experiences.
When you say critical psychology, can you define that? I should have asked you to do this.
Sure.
Earlier.
Yeah, critical psychology is analyzes the ways that dominant discourses or dominant models and views or institutions, more mainstream things, the way that they maybe suppress more local knowledge. Okay, so it's interested in the power effect between these broad views of, let's say, reality, and more sort of contextual or geographic understandings of reality, among many other things. But that's sort of my take.
Okay, so you are what are your current projects?
Yeah. So okay. So building on Paranormal Ruptures, I started working on. I have a new book that's in process. So I don't have really a set title yet. So but it builds on. It does exactly what Paranormal Ruptures did, trying to understand the interconnection between parapsychology and exceptional experiences. In addition, like I mentioned earlier, myself and a colleague, Dr. David Mitchell, who works at the California Institute of Integral Studies.
Is that CIIS?
You got it?
Yeah, they do great work. They have great programs out there.
Yeah. It's a really, really innovative and exciting program that they have out there. So Dr. Mitchell and myself are presenting at the SEE conference I mentioned about earlier, on our research project that collects, and analyzes local paranormal folklore in the Western Georgia area. So kind of where I'm located, kind of like our community, we collected stories, and we're applying a qualitative analysis to it to try and understand, what these tell us.
Are there specific stories in your area where you are, like specific myths or folklore around certain cryptoids? Cryptoids?
Yeah. Yeah, cryptids. Yeah.
Cryptids. Gosh. And we'll wrap this up shortly.
Yeah, there are. There's oh my gosh. There's so much. And this is sort of interesting, right? Like once you get at more local level, these things become more pronounced. So a friend of mine, Trey Hudson, has a book. I think it's called The Meadow, that talks about how around Western Georgia, there's this place that's like kind of Skinwalker Ranch. If your viewers are familiar with that, it's like it's a paranormal hotspot.
Okay.
So called The Meadow. In addition, I have
a M. Night Shyamalan movie or something. The Meadow.
Yeah, I mean, some of the stories are, very, very extraordinary.
Do you ever get freaked out by them? Like, what's the craziest thing you've heard?
I mean, I think, yeah. So I'm thinking of like what Trey, one of Trey's stories, him and his team went out to the meadow to sort of investigate. And I believe that they were using sort of infrared cameras, to help them kind of see And they captured these beings. They weren't human beings, okay, because I think that they were a different size or whatever, and they captured this. I think I have this right. I'll have to go back and double check, but it was like a cube. It looked like a cube, okay, and these beings were kind of going, I think it was a cube. They were going in and out of this cube / portal thing. Okay. So, but it wasn't visual, right? You couldn't see them if you were to use your eyes, but they had to use, they captured it on this special equipment that they used.
Okay. So here's my question for you, dumbed down 1,000%. So this year, right, the Northern Lights were visible to a lot of people. But many people said they weren't visible to the naked eye. You could only see them with a camera. Why is that considered reality? But what this dude saw, people will question. Is that the crux of your research?
Basically.
Okay.
I mean, yeah. I mean, Amy, you're spot on. Why? You're exactly right. Why do we consider the example of the Northern Lights reality, whereas that story I just told you about, why is that considered paranormal?
Mm-hmm.
There's a lot to be said about that. Maybe because the Northern Lights are sort of more normal. People know about that. The Northern Lights, they're taught in school, right? We hear about them, and versus these strange experiences. I'm sure all of your listeners can relate to this, that there are no classes in school, in high school, even in university, except, right, University of West Georgia is sort of the almost the only exception, right? There are no classes on these strange experiences. And so for me, that says that's a problem in some ways, because these people are having experiences. And so are we just going to ignore them? That's what we've done. And I don't think that is helpful.
And don't tell me if there was a class titled Bigfoot, Fairies, and UAPs, that wouldn't have the longest wait list there is.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I agree. I mean, when Dr. Simmons Moore and myself at University of West Georgia, when we offer courses like that, they fill up very, very quickly. So they're popular classes.
Because we want to understand, right? We just want to understand, if people are having these experiences, what are they?
Right. Yeah. I should say too, that it's sort of striking to me, just, I have to be careful how I say this. Yes, students are interested in these topics. However, at the same time, there's this kind of ingrained skepticism that they come with. Mm-hmm. That, these things, there's no way that they're real. They can't be real. People are making these things up. So I think that is troublesome in some ways. I want to train students to have an open mind and consider alternatives. And so that kind of dogma, I think, is really, problematic.
Right. And I've said this before, we don't question that a dog can hear and smell things that are miles away, because we can't. We accept that. So why do we question that Trey went into a field and took an infrared camera and has proof that there were these things happening? We find every reason to dismiss that.
Right. Exactly. And for myself, I'm interested in the reasons for that. So why are we so quickly to dismiss those things? It says something about our society. It says something about the media. It says a lot. So that's sort of where I'm really interested in.
Well, Jake, if people want to learn parapsychology or your work, where can they find you? Can they take classes at Western Georgia? Audited classes where they just take the classes on Bigfoot and the fairies. It sounds really cool. I might sign up for that when it's available.
Yeah. Yeah. So I think, going to our faculty directory at West Georgia. So if you just type in University of West Georgia psychology faculty, right, that'll give you, a lot of information on the kind of work that we do, myself and Dr. Simmons Moore. And then, I have my own website, so you can, check that out. It's jacobwglazier.com. And I have some videos on there, and some, more information just about my research.
Well, Jake, thank you so much. This was a great way to end my day. This was super fun today. So thank you.
Yeah. Thank you, Amy. Thank you for having me.
Like what you heard today and want to hear more? Wondering what comes next and what it all means? Head over to Apple Podcast, Spotify, Stitcher, Google Play, or anywhere you get your podcasts and hit subscribe. Also, if you could take a minute to rate and review my podcast, I would really appreciate it. Stay tuned as we continue to explore life, death, and the space between.